Dictation 5. Ready? Man can only derive life and enjoyment from a perpetual search and appropriation, that is, from a perpetual application of his faculties to objects, or from labor. This is the origin of property, but yet he may live and enjoy by seizing and appropriating the productions of the faculties of his fellow men. This is the origin of plunder. Now, labor, being in itself a pain, and man being naturally inclined to avoid pain, it follows, and history proves it, that wherever plunder is less burdensome than labor, it prevails, and neither religion nor morality can, in this case, prevent it from prevailing. When does plunder cease? When it becomes less burdensome and more dangerous than labor. It is very evident that the proper aim of law is to oppose the powerful obstacle of collective force to this fatal tendency, that all its measures should be in favor of property and against plunder. But the law is made generally by one man or by one class of men, and as law cannot exist without the sanction and the support of a preponderating force, it must finally place this force in the hands of those who legislate. This is inevitable. Place phenomenon, combined with the fatal tendency which we have said exists in the heart of man, explains the almost universal perversion of law. It is easy to conceive that, instead of being a check upon justice, it becomes its most invincible instrument. It is easy to conceive that, according to the power of legislator, it destroys for its own profit and, in different degrees, amongst the rest of the community, personal independence by slavery, liberty by oppression, and property by plunder. It is in the nature of men to rise against the injustice of which they are the victims. When, therefore, plunder is organized by law for the profit of those who perpetrate it, all the plundered classes tend, either by peaceful or revolutionary means, to enter in some way into the manufacturing of laws. These classes, according to the degree of enlightenment at which they have arrived, may propose to themselves two very different ends. When they thus attempt the attainment of their political rights, either they may wish to put an end to lawful plunder, or they may desire to take part in it. Woe to the nation where there is latter thought prevails amongst the masses, at the moment when they in their turn seize upon the legislative power. Up to that time, lawful plunder has been exercised by the few upon the many, as in the case in countries where the right of legislating is confined to a few hands. But now it has become universal, and the equilibrium is sought in universal plunder. The injustice which society contains, instead of being rooted out of it, is generalized. As soon as the injured classes have recovered their political rights, their first thought is not to abolish plunder, but to organize against the other classes, and to their own detriment, a system of reprisals, as if it was necessary, before the reign of injustice arrives, that all should undergo a cruel retribution, some for their iniquity and some for their ignorance. It would be impossible, therefore, to introduce into society a greater change and a greater evil than this: the conversion of the law into an instrument of plunder, what would be the consequences of such a perversion? It would require volumes to describe them all. We must content ourselves with pointing out the most striking. In the first place, it would efface from everybody's conscience the distinction between justice and injustice. No society can exist unless the laws are respected to a certain degree, but the safest way to make them respected is to make them respectable. When law and morality are in contradiction to each other, the citizen finds himself in the cruel alternative of either losing his moral sense or of losing his respect for the law. Two evils of equal magnitude between which it would be difficult to choose. It is so much in the nature of law to support justice, then in the minds of the masses they are one and the same. There is in all of us a strong disposition to regard what is lawful as legitimate, so much so that many falsely derive all justice from law. It is sufficient then for the law to order and sanction plunder, that it may appear to many consciences just and scared. Slavery, protection, and monopoly find defenders not only in those who profit by them, but in those who suffer by them. If you suggest a doubt as to the morality of these institutions, it is said directly, you are a dangerous innovator, a utopian, a theorist, a disciple of the laws. You would shake the basis upon which society rests. If you lecture upon morality or political economy, official bodies will be found to make this request to the government, so that if a law exists which sanctions slavery or monopoly, oppression or plunder in any form whatever, it must not even be mentioned. For how can it be mentioned without damaging the respect which it inspires? Still further, morality and political economy must be taught in connection with this law, that is, under the supposition that it must be just only because it is law. Another effect of this deplorable perversion of the law is that it gives to human passions and to political struggles, and in general to politics properly, so called an exaggerated preponderance. I could prove this assertion in 1,000 ways, but I shall confine myself, by way of illustration, to bringing it to bear upon a subject which has of late occupied everybody's mind: universal suffrage. Whatever may be thought of it by the adepts of the school of Roshu, which professes to be very far advanced, but which I consider 20 centuries behind, universal suffrage is not one of those sacred dogmas with respect to which examination and doubts are crimes. 3 persons out of 4 then are excluded, and more than this, they are excluded by the fourth. Upon what principle is this exclusion founded? Upon the principle of incapacity. Universal suffrage then means universal suffrage of those who are capable. In point of fact, who are the capable? Are age, sex, and judicial condemnations the only conditions to which incapacity is to be attached? On taking a nearer view of the object, we may soon perceive the motive which causes the right of suffrage to depend upon the presumption of incapacity. The most extended system, differing only in this respect from the most restricted by the appreciation of those conditions on which this incapacity depends, and which constitutes not a difference in principle but in degree. Finished.